appropriately advertised. Let's see. Roll call, please, Ms. Holman.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Mrs. Devine?
Here.
Mrs. Maya?
Here.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Here.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Here.
Mrs. Sherman?
Here.
Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Dilkus?
Here.
Mr. Chu?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. There was an executive session tonight, and so with that, can I have a motion to exit the executive session?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we're going to have one presentation tonight, but let's, I think, go ahead and enter committee of the whole, so that makes it a little easier for us to have a conversation as a board about this. So can I have a motion to enter committee of the whole, please? And a second? Great. All in favor? Aye. Okay. At this point, we'll have, I think it's Ms. Hall-Turner will present to us some curriculum updates.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this toasty occasion. And happy first official day of summer to everyone here, especially the teachers. In the winter, at the winter board retreat in, I think, February, you all asked if I would kind of come back and repeat the exercise that we took together in the midwinter at the end of the year. Thank you, Patrick. To share out where we ended up in terms of our goals and outcomes. Of course, in the fall, after our state standardized test data comes back in a few weeks in the middle of July, we will be back again with the official district test report. But that always feels kind of far off to me to wait until September or October. And since we're here together now and we know a lot of the great outcomes that we have arrived at this year, as well as the continued focus areas, it feels right to just use this as an opportunity to speak, publicly about all that we've accomplished together this year. So that's what we are about to do here. All right. I'm going to be sharing probably 10 or 12 slides with a lot of different data points. And we always start by referencing our vision and our mission statement, but I feel like especially when I'm about to launch into a lot of slides with a lot of numbers, it can be easy to kind of get lost in the numbers and lost in the data points. And so I want to be really clear just about connecting what we're about to share today directly to our mission and vision, because all of these data points, all of these goals, the ones that we met or exceeded or came close to, they represent kids and students' hard work. They represent staff's hard work. And so yes, there are numbers on a slide today, but these represent real kids, real adults who've worked exceptionally hard this year, and we're really proud of that. And so I want to just explicitly connect all of the numbers to our mission and our vision directly. I've been here for a year, but all of this directly aligns to the work that Dr. McDowell and others have been leading for the last 4 years as connected to our continuous improvement guide. Our school leaders talk a lot about our SIG process, and so what we're talking about tonight directly connects and correlates with that monthly cadence of setting goals in the summer, mapping out month-by-month priorities that align to the ebb and flow of the school year, and then progress monitoring along the way. This also connects to our CAR framework, the Connected Action Roadmap. Again, you've probably heard about that over the last few years. So this is all connected to that overarching vision. I came across this visual recently, and I think it works really nicely for what I'm about to share here. Again, kind of just stemming further from the overarching SIG framework. Every year, I feel like at the end of the year, as a school leader or district leader, we're inundated with tons of data that we have to figure out how to make sense of and how to take action with. And so this came across my radar in the last couple of days, and I thought it was the perfect way to just kind of get into what we're talking about today, which is the jumble of Lego pile is like how I sometimes feel at the end of a school year. And our work this year with the continuous improvement guide and our key performance indicators, KPIs, really is like the perfect segue here of taking this big jumble of Legos or this big jumble of data points and having a very clear set of goals and priorities that has helped us to stay as a district and as school leaders laser focused on some core components where we could otherwise get distracted by all the other stuff, right? And that once we've made sense of that and organized it and made a plan, that ultimately we're really focused on making data actionable and useful. Like, yes, these are numbers, yes, these are goals, did we meet it or did we not? But what does this tell us about our planning for this summer, our direction and our priorities for next year, our resource allocation, et cetera? So that's where we're headed tonight. So a nice segue into our key performance indicators. The board has heard me talk about this many times this year, I think the public as well. And so every school last summer, every school leader, we set 7 key performance indicator goals, a variety of academic achievement outcomes, as well as climate and culture and attendance outcomes. From a process standpoint, each school was looking at the historical data and outcomes of their particular building, right? So we were not operating from a one-size-fits-all perspective. We were operating from a school-by-school perspective, looking at the individual outcomes of those particular kids last year and the year before, et cetera. And then setting aggressive but achievable goals based on that building's kids and performance. These are otherwise known as SMART goals. We're going to look at 4 of the 7 KPIs tonight. Some of the KPIs are academic outcomes directly aligned to NJSLA state standardized test outcomes, which we do not have that data yet until about the middle of July. So we'll be back to report out on that again in a few weeks' time once it is released and available to the public. But we will be reporting out tonight on a few of these areas. Average daily attendance, chronic absenteeism, daily tardiness, and suspension rates. Again, these are just internal goals that Dr. McDowell and other leaders and I have worked to set last summer, and we've been tracking methodically throughout the course of the year. And then we will also be looking at our universal screener outcomes for NWEA MAP and DIBELS. So I'll be quiet in 1 second to let people take in the numbers, but just to explain what we're going to be looking at on the next 4 slides. You'll see every building. You'll see what the goal kind of category is. Neon green means that the goal was met or exceeded. That lighter green color, I couldn't help myself, means that we came within 1 percentage point of meeting it. And I didn't want to round up, but we came darn close. So you'll see that same color coding on each of the next several slides.
Do you mind if I jump in here? And I'm just going to read this chart because I know that folks who are watching at home, it's really hard to
Sure.
read this. So I'm just going to read this out so people see it. So the table is, or the slide is KPI average daily attendance. The table is school year 2024-2025 average daily attendance. The left column is the school and the right column is the percentage. So CECC is 94.4%, and that's that lighter green color, so within 1%. Garfield is 95.4%, which is that neon green, which is met or exceeded. Is that correct? And
Yep.
then New B is 94.4%, with no color. Sharp is 92.8%, which is the light green, or the neon green. Zane is 95.2%, which is the light green. And then Tatum is 95.5%, which is the neon green. CMS is 94.4%, no color. CHS is 92.8%, no color.
Thanks, Roger, and I can do that on the next slides, or you're welcome to chime in. And so, yes, as Roger pointed out, the slides that you see in the lighter green or the neon green met or exceeded their goals or came very close. I'll just say anecdotally, so CHS is not highlighted, 92.8% was outcome. That is still, I believe, a 1.3% increase over where they ended last year. So did they meet their goal? Not quite, but progress made? Certainly, right? So I do want to just kind of narrate some of that as well. Okay, chronic absenteeism. Again, same table configuration as before. It's all of our buildings down the left-hand side and the same color coding. So CECC, which is our early childhood program, 14.3%. Garfield, 7.8%. Both exceeded their goals. Newbie, 10.3%. And Sharp, 22.3%. Did not meet either of their chronic absenteeism goals. Zane and Tatum both came within 1 percentage point of meeting their chronic absenteeism goals, 10.6% for Zane and 6.8% for Tatum. CMS 10.5% and CHS 17% exceeded the high school chronic absenteeism goal, I believe, by almost a full 5 percentage point decrease from last year to this year. Tardiness, this is not a metric that the state measures in any way to my knowledge, but it obviously really matters to us internally because we want kids prompt and present for school, especially to get all of the important stuff that happens immediately when the first bell rings. And so we set a metric around it. And obviously, as you can see here, compared to the other KPIs, this is an area where there's some work across the district this year. And coincidentally, our start time was a bit later, especially at the elementary level this year. And so it's been a point of a bit of confusion this year with when there was more time to get to school, people, my own family included, struggled to often get to school on time. So I'm not sure what that is in human nature, but it was a thing in our household at least. I'll run down those numbers again. 2.6% tardiness at CECC and 2.2% at Garfield. Newbie, 4.5%. Tardiness came very close to meeting the goal, as well as Sharp, 4.1%. Zane, 3.6%. Tatum exceeded their goal with 2.2% daily tardiness. Collingswood Middle School, 4.9%, and the high school, 10% tardiness. And our final goal that I'll report out on tonight is our suspension rate goal. All of our elementary schools set a goal of 0 suspensions, and as you can see, all did extraordinarily well in that regard. As you can see, CECC, Garfield, Sharp, and Zane all met or exceeded the goal of 0% of 0 suspensions, and then Newbie and Tatum had 0.7 at Newbie and 0.4 at Tatum, and I believe that is one instance of suspension in each of those buildings this year. All elementary schools met or came very close to meeting their suspension goal. Collingswood Middle School, 4% student suspension rate, and the high school, 6.5%.
Quick question here. How does suspension rate calculated here? Is it the number of students out of the total student body are suspended, or is it something to do with the number of instances?
We use the same metric that the state uses. So any removal from school, so that could be out-of-school suspension, in-school suspension, any kind of time outside of the typical school day schedule for a child. And it is out of the incidence out of the entire denominator of the student population.
I have a question. Sorry. The absenteeism rate for Sharp was very high, but the tardiness was not high. Can you explain the differences there? I would think they would kind of correlate with each other.
I believe, or my rationale on that is that there are 6 pre-K classrooms at Sharp, and so I believe that the attendance numbers at Sharp look a little bit different than all of our other elementary schools because of that factor. It is a different factor of having that many early elementary classrooms in a building. And like ongoing work with families to make sure that they understand that once you enroll in pre-K, like you are here, you are included in our attendance count, and just doing that ongoing work with families to make sure they understand that like your attendance is expected even when you're 3 or 4. So I think that leads to some of the discrepancies that look a bit differently at Sharp. Mhm. We're going to shift to our last 2 updates for tonight. As you've heard me share before, our secondary campus implemented a new universal screener this year, which is NWEA MAP for math and ELA. A universal screener is an assessment that every student takes 3 times a year typically, beginning, middle, and end, to give teachers and leaders a strong sense of how students are thriving during those testing windows, what their present strengths are, as well as growth areas and growth opportunities. And so we will report out on that a bit tonight for both MAP as well as DIBBLES, which is our K-5 universal screener for reading. So what you see here is a breakdown of the middle school and the high school's spring MAP performance for ELA and math, comparing it to their national peers. One of the great things about both of the universal screeners that we use is that millions of kids take these tests across the country, and so we can really clearly see how our kids compare to their same age peers nationally. And so what I'm excited to report on tonight is that in all 4 content areas that we measure, we are exceeding, in some cases slightly, and in some cases more so, we're exceeding the national average, which would be 50%. We obviously have areas where we have more work to do, like high school math, and where we have stronger outcomes like middle school ELA and middle school math, right? So peaks that we should celebrate tonight, as well as continued growth areas that have been an area of focus all year long, particularly high school math. This is not new news, but just sharing out tonight that as we think about our peers nationally, this is how our kids are comparing on a nationally normed assessment. And I feel directionally positive and proud about where we stand at the end of this year, especially with our first time taking assessments such as this year.
Can I jump in here and make sure that I'm reading the percentage correctly? So what this says, so CMS ELA 71%. So does this say that essentially our CMS's, the students who took this test for ELA in our CMS, the median score of those students is greater than 71% of the median scores across the other schools across the nation?
Yeah, organized from 0 to 100, right, with 50th percentile being the median on this assessment. Our kids in ELA math scored at the 71st percentile compared to their peers. MAP breaks it down into like bands of quintiles. Yeah, so 0 to 19, 20 to 21st to 40, like it breaks them down into that range. And so our kids, if we're using that example, is 71st. What is that? 21 percentage points above the national median. Okay. And then last but certainly not least, we have our elementary universal screener for reading, which is known as DIBBLES. That's just the name of the program. We began the year with a baseline assessment in September of 61% of our students achieving at or above the national benchmark. Again, this is a test that millions of kids take across the country. And thrilled to share, that shouldn't say 10% increase, that should say a 15% increase. Thrilled to share a 15% increase from the beginning of year to end of year assessment window for all of our elementary campuses, looking at this combined as a composite. And similarly, at the opposite end of the spectrum, right, we're always looking at kind of all of the different kinds of learners that we serve. Who are our kids who are achieving at grade level or perhaps are above grade level, and then also always trying to target students who need to make the most growth. And so really particularly proud of this 10 percentage points decrease in the beginning of year to end of year for students who are well below benchmark. And in terms of actual humans, because I like to put like numbers into context of the actual kids. This is moving 172 kids at the beginning of the year who were well below benchmark to 99 at the end of the year. And I see a lot of elementary teachers out here tonight, and so I know that comes from just relentless attention to detail and relentless focus on serving kids well and knowing exactly what they need to move forward. And then this is a snapshot of the growth at every building from, again, beginning of year to end of year.
And to clarify here, this is percentage point increase, right? Not percent increase.
Say again?
This is percentage point increase. So like if it's 19, I don't know what the beginning for Garfield was, but if it were 51, then now it's
That's right.
70.
Yep, that's right. And I want to conclude, I think I see Camila here, yes. I want to conclude with a special shout out because I see some sharp folks here tonight, and I know probably more are listening at home. And so I want to just take us back to the fall, I believe it was the September, October board meeting where we shared out our district testing report, including a breakdown of our elementary school performance on the NJSLA last spring. There was a significant discrepancy between the outcomes at Sharp as in comparison to the other 4 elementary campuses in the district. And it was sobering discrepancy. And I heard feedback from schools and family members about what was going on. And so I have been looking for an opportunity to circle back to that. All of our elementary staff have already heard this already in a elementary staff meeting, but I really wanted to make sure we took an opportunity to say this publicly, that Sharp grew 11 percentage points at from the beginning of the year to the end of year on their reading assessment, as well as an 11 percentage point reduction in the well below benchmark readers at Sharp this year. That's a reduction from 42 kids to 28. And they met, of the 4 KPI indicators we looked at tonight, they met or exceeded 3 of the 4. And I see Camila back here tonight, Principal Hinson, who deserves incredible. I see Sharp PTA folks and Sharp staff here tonight, and maybe if you're listening at home, so. These outcomes don't guarantee that when we look at anybody's state standardized test scores, including Sharp's in a few weeks, that we're going to see significant achievement, but this is directionally really strong progress at Sharp in all of our buildings, and so I feel very optimistic about the state test results that we'll be receiving in a few weeks. And again, regardless of what those outcomes are, like growth is growth, right? And these are points to celebrate, and thanks to exceptionally dedicated leadership and classroom leadership as well. So I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to come back to the Sharp community and say, we see what's happening there and keep up the great work. That, I believe, is all I have to say tonight, but I'll be happy to take, we'll leave this one up. I will be happy to take any questions or clarifications.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hal Turner. You know, I feel like a lot of us, and I know I certainly have been saying how much we want to talk more about teaching and learning in our district. And so ending our final board meeting this way is such a positive reflection of what is going on in our district. So thank you for highlighting all the excellent work that is going on in teaching and learning in our district. I wanted to know if perhaps in the future there could be, in addition to whether schools met, did not meet, came very close to meeting their goal for that year, you could also compare it to previous years so that we can see the growth that we know is happening, as you said, even if they did not necessarily meet a goal, that would be really nice comparisons for future data reporting.
Sure thing.
Something like Dibbles being the first year that we've used it, any lessons learned and how to make sure that going into the beginning of next year, kids, teachers, staff, administrators, everybody's set up to make that just like a smooth process?
Yeah. I mean, I think mostly it's that we are not changing anything, and that staff have now had a full year under their belts with a new program that, like any new program, is time-consuming to learn, is time-consuming to figure out how it all works and how the lessons connect to the data. And so I think some of like the biggest sighs of relief that I've seen from teachers this spring is when I say like, nothing's changing. This is the same plan for next year. So I think that allows people to know like, oh, all the time that I spent on the materials and the prep of all the little minutiae to deliver one lesson times 180 days times many groups of kids. I think folks feel excited. I mean, I don't want to speak for, like, I think folks feel excited that there will be great consistency with that leading into next year. The one thing I am thinking about is we have some new, staffing moves and some new staff coming in at the elementary level, and so just making sure that we have a thoughtful plan in place to get them up to speed, because everyone else will be on year 2, but it will be their first year potentially. So that will be part of the summer work as well.
I believe this was asked in Oakland last week, but you said the testing results will be coming up soon. How are you gonna, or how are the board, faculty, and community parents gonna receive that?
So we'll receive them internally in the middle of July. It's just we received a raw data file at first that is embargoed for like internal use. And then we will present it out internally to building leaders, district leaders, and then I would expect by our August board meeting we'll be able to be speaking publicly about outcomes, as well as then the district testing report that's a requirement for us to present on at the September-October board meeting. Families receive their child's testing report when we resume school in September.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. Nope, one more question from Roger.
I don't think these actually aren't questions, but just some observations I wanted to mention, which is, you know, the chronic absenteeism, the tardiness, those pieces. I think it's great that we're reporting on that, and that's been a district focus. You know, I think about just thinking back to a lot of the discussion that we as a community had during our referendum push last year, and I think one of the things that came up there was the impact that chronic absenteeism and absenteeism and tardiness in general are having in the education of our students, right? And a question of, well, what is the district doing to address those things? Now, I know that's been on the radar of the district for years, but it's great to see, you know, the very tangible work being put forth to address those pieces there. Again, you know, understanding that a lot of the discussions that we had during the referendum about student outcomes, student performance, how we're doing as a district, those conversations should still continue to be had, and I think are continuing to be had, and are continuing to be a focus of the district. And so thank you all for your work there. The other thing I was going to mention is you talked about how next year, you know, the system is the same, right? The Dibble, nothing's going to be changing there, and there's probably a sigh of relief across staff that we're not putting in a new system. And that reminds me very much about what I learned in teaching school, education school, and as an education researcher, is this idea of reform fatigue, right? And so often, probably especially in probably the 2010s, right, you'd have every 2-3 years some new initiative come in to the district that is supposed to solve all of our problems, whether it be about ELA or math or science or whatever. And you know, it goes in, and then either leadership changes or it's not showing what you want immediately, and so 2 or 3 years later someone else puts in another system, and teachers and staff become inundated and exhausted by having to relearn all those systems. And my point here is just that when we look at next year, I think what we can see here is that the KPIs obviously will increase, right? They will, from now we have that, these results this year that have grown from previous years. The next years will again be aggressive, but reasonable increases to how much better we can do either with crack absenteeism or with tardiness or with test scores. And it's that incremental change over time and the consistency of that push incrementally is how we improve as a district. And there really is no silver bullet magic. We snap our fingers and within 1 year we're exactly where we want to be, but it's that unwavering spirit of every single year we increase a little bit, we get better a little bit, we get better a little bit, we get better a little bit, and that's where when you do that.
Publicly thank the graduating seniors and their families for the years of partnership. Specifically, we want to highlight the tremendous efforts demonstrated by our high school staff in order to get these amazing young people across the stage, and we wish each one of them well in their next pursuit. On June 18th, we had 138 talented 8th grade students honored for not only their academic achievement, but also exemplary character as well as community service. And so the Student Council President, Julian Carney, he gave a pretty powerful and encouraging message to students. And so we're extremely proud of our 8th graders, and we are so excited to welcome them to high school next year. During the last weeks of school, during our 5th grade promotion ceremony, students from across all of our elementary schools were honored for their collective growth and development as they each prepare for middle school. And so guest speakers and school alumni delivered inspiring messages to students on every campus. And so we would also like to thank all of our elementary families whose children are transitioning from their elementary school, and we look forward to welcoming them on this campus next year for middle school. On June 22nd, the Borough of Collingswood sponsored its 3rd annual Juneteenth celebration, honoring the rich history, culture, and creativity of the Black community. The outdoor event featured live performances, a DJ. We had 2 Collingswood High School students do public readings, as well as our elementary students participating and sharing their artwork. There were vendors and arts markets, and there were crafts, and then also community organizations with community resources. And so the event capped off a week of community and educational activities across the borough, including educational resources, discussions, and activities in each of our schools across in Collingswood. We'd like to recognize Collingswood High School students Cassidy Moore and Khadijah Fofana for their role in their public readings, as well as thanking all of our students who submitted their artwork, as well as community volunteers and sponsors who helped organize the event. And we would also just like to publicly thank the borough for its continued investment and commitment to celebrating this historical milestone. On June 18th, we informed the school community that traffic cameras have been installed near our schools in order to help monitor traffic patterns, as well as enhance student safety for future arrival and dismissal times. These cameras are part of a broader Safe Routes to School initiative aimed at ensuring safer streets for our students, staff, and their families. And so by monitoring vehicle flow and driver behavior, we hope to reduce speeding, as well as improve traffic conditions around our school buildings. And so please continue to follow all posted traffic signs, as well as drive with caution, especially during high traffic times. And we want to make sure that every individual within our community is safe, both to and from school. Kindergarten continues to see enrollment increase. Seats are filling up very quickly, so please register as soon as possible. Final building placements will take place in mid to late July. We'd like to thank the registration team for working so hard to make sure that our youngest learners are set up for success. We would just like to thank again our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Howell Turner, as well as all of our school leaders and our teachers. They pulled a yeoman's effort this year. And so the world that we live in can sometimes be very distracting. And so one of the things that we are extremely proud of is the level of intent and focus that every one of our schools were able to demonstrate this year. They drilled down, they focused on looking at not just the data, but looking at kids. And so, yes, we presented numbers, but those numbers, they represent children. They represent a story, they represent families. And so what we see is our continued growth and development, both academically and culturally, in each of our schools. And this is large in part because our teachers are working tremendously hard every single day. Our school leaders are working hard every single day. And so, just to be able to parrot what some of our board leaders talked about is that gradual improvement year over year is what's needed for us to be able to make sure that we can deliver on that vision and that mission of every single child within our district, not only getting what they need, but growing and thriving and being meaningful contributors to a socially just society. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Moving on to section number 9, the first section for public comment. The purpose of this public comment section is to discuss items listed on the agenda. Additional, more general comments may be made later in the meeting. The public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators. The intent of public comment is to give the community opportunity to provide feedback to the board. We will be actively listening and taking notes so that we can take all that is being said in consideration. We will also take note of any questions and, if appropriate, do our best to address them at the end of public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak and expected to do so with the utmost sensitivity for everyone in attendance. In fairness to all who wish to speak, there is a strict 3-minute time limit per person during public comment, and Ms. Coleman will assist me by keeping time. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, and the floor is now open.
Hi, my name is Andrea Haynes, and I'm here as president of the Marching Band Boosters Association, and here just to ask the board about our request to host a home preview show on September 6th. We had submitted the paperwork. It was signed by Mr. Whalen, and I think it's lost somewhere in the main office, but we brought an updated form signed by Mr. Woodward. We are on a tight timeline for this. We do need to let Tournament of Bands know by the end of the week if we are able to host or not. This is a huge opportunity for our kids. They haven't been able to perform at home in forever with it. So this would be great for them. They could perform at home with the community there to support them. And it's a big fundraiser for us, to help keep the program viable. We know funding is a challenge. It'll give us the opportunity to help raise the funds ourselves rather than coming back and asking the board for additional help too. So I have the completed form here if you need it, and we do ask the board to vote yes tonight. Thank you.
My name's Kate. I'm the vice president of the Band Boosters, and I just wanted to add, we know that this is seeming like a last-minute thing, but what initially we were trying to do was to share with another district, which fell through, so then we were trying to rush these papers in for this week before this meeting. So we are against a timeline, and I appreciate that you guys are too. So thank you.
Is it okay if I reply? I'm going to give this off to the Buildings and Grounds. So I did get all your emails today. Because this is literally the first time I'm seeing it. So I apologize for whatever happened out there in the universe. But to help, now the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee would usually look at all the facilities requests. So they're not meeting, but I have spoken to the board president and the superintendent. I am going to need a little more information.
Okay.
Because in years past, I guess we need to know how many schools.
Yes.
Like, and we need, like, there's issues with parking, like, we would need to, like, address, I sent you a quick little email when I first got here. We need to address some of those things so the board can really consider it.
So this is a smaller show than what, this is a smaller show than what a typical band competition is. It's probably about half the size. We estimate it would be less than what a football game normally brings in, and significantly less than what graduation just had. We've reached out to Chief Carey so we can help with security and parking on the borough side. The other benefit to the show is that typically families come to watch their kid and they leave, and then another group comes
Gotcha.
in too as each. So we would expect maybe 5 or 6 schools to come and participate, and each group would have 2 opportunities to perform during the day. And it's really great because the kids, 1, they get to perform in front of our community, which they haven't been able to do, and get that support. And 2, it's at the beginning of the season, so the Tournament of Band judges would be able to come onto the field and critique the kids and kind of give them some feedback that they can incorporate through the rest of the season too. So it's a really beneficial opportunity for them. And it's a great fundraiser for us, because we can.
Do you know when they come? Are they bringing buses?
So the schools would bring buses, yes.
Which we would deal with the borough about parking through the park for that
Yeah.
part.
So we may need to reconnect. I'm taking notes.
Yeah,
I'm going to
sure.
talk to Billings Grounds because we would have to, in years past, we need special permission to park buses at the park.
Yeah.
So we would need to, as a group, discuss this.
Yeah, so let me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to get a little more
Yeah,
information.
of course.
yeah, let me, so let's wrap up public comments to make sure no one else has. And then what I'll do is I'll get us a motion so that we can discuss this as a board. Because I think there are some specifics that Ms. Coleman and I spoke about earlier that we have to consider here.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Right.
Yeah, and we're
Thank
happy
you.
to jump
Whatever we
through
can
any
answer,
hoops.
yeah.
Okay,
And we can get a
thank
hold of
you.
Mr. Woodward, too, if there's something we can't answer.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
so-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comments?
Good evening, Jack McMullen, President of the Collingswood Principals and Supervisors Association, and I would just like to echo Dr. McDowell's comments and congratulate and thank the staff and administrators across the district for their efforts on behalf of our students in concluding a very successful 2024-2025 school year. I'd also like to thank our Board of Education and Central Administration for their support of our mission in support of our students as well. And finally, on the agenda this evening, I would like to acknowledge and thank Mr. Windsor Yamamoto on his exemplary career in the Collingswood District and wish him well in his retirement. Mr. Yamamoto has significantly contributed to our district's success, and he will be missed. Thank you.
Okay, seeing as there are no more public comments, let us, I think this is what we'll do. Let's move on to item number 10, or section number 10, Business Administrative Board Secretary's Report.
Okay. Item 10.01 is the May monthly budget transfer report. 10.02 is your May financial statements. 10.03 is your listing of your student activities cash balances for the month of May. 10.04 is your food service financial statements. 10.05 is your purchase orders that have been issued during the month of June. Shouldn't be that many at this point. And 10.06 is a listing of the warrants that'll be paid tomorrow morning. And just a reminder to everybody, you guys give me approval to pay bills during the summer and ratify in August. So typically what I do is first week in July, I do like another little itty bitty bills list, and then I do another one second week in July once all the invoices in, and then I close the year. So I'll send all that, I'll send the bills list out as like FYIs to everybody as I'm paying it, but everything will be brought to you in August for ratification. Okay? That's it.
Moving to section 11, Buildings, Grounds and Finance Committee, Mr. Craig, the chairperson, will present.
The Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee reviews all financial statements, purchase orders, and warrants on a monthly basis. The committee also reviews and approves all contracts with outside service providers and oversees all maintenance and capital improvement projects district-wide. We have a very long agenda this month, so buckle up. And Ms. Coleman, do I need to read all of the resolutions that are in here?
No.
Thank you. Items 11.2 to 11.9 of the Board Secretary's report has been, as was presented. 11.10 and 11.11 are both lease renewals, First Union Methodist Church for pre-K space, and then St. Teresa of Calcutta for board office space. 11.12, the resolution of distribution of BCIP funds. We have opted to take those funds that we get back from the JIF and put towards the full premium costs for the next year. 11.13, notifying the New Jersey Department of Education of anticipated temporary facilities for next year. 11.14 is Collingswood Oakland's purchasing manual. 11.15 is an RFP for mental health services tied to the Wellness Center for next school year. 11.16 is school lunch prices for next school year. 11.17 is a resolution for reserve accounts. Will not read that full resolution. 11.18, parent contract for a student transportation for next school year. 11.19 is a contract with Pittsgrove Township for a student who is McKinley-Vento eligible. 11.20, the board thanks Kathy Beeden for the generous donation of a trombone. 11.21 is tuition contract with Woodlynn for providing a student and a one-to-one aide for that student. 1122 are as-needed service contract with Positive Behavior Supports Corporation for next school year. 1123 is shared services with Oakland Borough for trash removal. 1124 and 25 are shared services with both Haddon Township and Summerdale for maintenance services. 1126 is another shared services for network administrative services with Audubon School District. 1127 is contract services with Salient Health for as-needed behavioral consultants for next year. 1128 is a contract with Laurel Therapy Incorporated for OT services for next year. 1129 is authorizing the district to join litigation against major social media platforms. A lot of other districts are doing this for saying that the platforms have not protected students well enough. There's no cost for us to join, but it is adding our voice to a growing demand that these businesses keep our kids safe. 1130, approval of the CHSPTA's Thomas J. Santo Honorary Scholarship. This will be initially funded at $7,000 to give out $1,000 a year in scholarships over the next 7 years. 1131 is a K-3 grant for $5,540 for comprehensive universal screeners. 1132 is the summer resolution, which is the delegation of powers to the board office, since we do not have a meeting next month, so that they can continue to operate. 1133, the board thanks Angela Imperial for the generous donation of a cello. And then we have use of facility requests, 1134 through 36. Kona Ice, Haddon Township to use the high school football field next year while their fields are being worked on, and then an after-school Good News Club. Seeking approval for items 11.2 to 11.36.
Do I have a motion? And a second? Okay, and then can I ask for a motion to add approval for a tournament of bands to the agenda? And so I'll explain this in a minute.
Good. Would the summer resolution of delegating authority give you the ability to approve that if we don't vote on it tonight, if they have everything you need?
Looking at John. I guess so.
So, well, let's enter into
we
the
talk
motion
about it.
so we can just discuss this and in a second. Do we have, that's all we need for the motion, I think, right? Right, okay. So now we're in the secondary motion of basically whether or not we want to add tournament of bands to the big show, to the to the agenda item. Now, a few things I want to mention to the board. So Ms. Coleman and I spoke about this earlier today. One of the issues is that because this is, I understand, would be the district sponsoring this, running this event.
So it would be the marching band boosters.
Right.
We would be the ones organizing. So we would work with Chief Carey, we'd work with the borough, and we'd be recruiting volunteers to help us organize and plan. It's a big lift.
Right. And as I understand it, the process usually is that the document goes through, then it goes to our finance, buildings and grounds, or buildings and grounds folks, and then to review and to also understand each of the individual pieces of it, and then it comes to the board then to approve. One of the concerns that I have is to make sure we give our facility staff enough time to make sure that everything is meetable and doable, and that those coordinated pieces are okay, understanding that we have to, one of the things that I think Ms. Coleman brought up was we might have to make sure we can park buses in Knight Park, which I think was what used to happen. At the same time, I also want to make sure that we're getting the approval for this done in time so that it can be held at the district. And so my question, and I think I asked for this motion not necessarily because I think that it should be added to the agenda, but to figure out how do we make sure we discuss it so we can figure out how do we make sure that we can give our buildings and grounds folks enough time to review, but also that we can get the approval to the folks to do it. So I think is the question that.
Could we either amend the summer resolution by adding in language to allow you to approve use of facility requests that come in over the summer, and then just treat that as this?
Yeah, that's fine. Hold
Can I
on.
ask a quick question? Is this the first time that Buildings and Grounds has heard about this at all?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Andrea, what's the real hard deadline of when we need an no week? End of this week.
We do, because tournament advance needs enough time to publicize and invite other schools, and those schools need time to work out, busing, all the things that we do when
Right,
we go to a
right,
competition
right.
too, and they're probably not meeting in July either. So,
Yeah, no.
When is the event? I'm sorry.
the event is September 6th.
It's
and
the
it would be
day
all
after
day.
Labor Day, I think.
The request is to use the football fields and grounds, and then the cafeteria for concessions.
Does tournament of bands need a hard approval from the school board?
We do, because we need to know that, tournament advance needs
Like
to
by the
know
end of the week, I mean.
that we're hosting.
Got
So
it.
that they can invite and publicize, and we need to recruit judges, like all
Meg-
that thing.
Megan, was your question, though, do they need a resolution from the board, or do they just
I
need,
guess,
you
so
just need
I
approval?
appreciate what you're saying about the summer, Ms. Coleman would have the summer permission to approve things, but if they need a board approval by the end of the week in order for tournament of bands to move forward, I just wanted to clarify what that timeline was.
I just think they need the green light. So like, right now, like, it's signed by Mr. Whalen, it has to be signed by Buildings and Grounds. Like, it goes to the school administrator first, and then Buildings and Grounds, and then I'm the last, it comes to me, then you guys are the last stop. So we need 2 more signatures on there. I have our Buildings and Grounds person looking at it now, because I want to make sure it's not conflicting with anything.
And-
Doesn't
and
look like
also-
it conflicts.
Also, I also just want to put out that, because I don't want to put our Buildings and Grounds staff in a situation where they have to rush right now about this, understanding that, I don't want to basically put Mr. Longo
Well,
on
we
the
can
spot
just-
here, right? So,
I would
we do a
recommend you
conditional
approve it
approval?
pending
Yes.
Buildings and Grounds review and
Right.
approval, because we're coming in off of Labor Day, so I want to make sure
Right.
there's adequate staffing for setup,
Right.
and cleanup is always a big issue with big
Yeah.
events. We have a massive cleanup, so I
So-
just want to make sure
so,
that
so,
that's
so,
Can we do a
covered.
conditional approval
Right.
based on a final decision at the end
Yeah,
of the week?
that's what I just said.
Okay, right, but
so, right.
Okay.
Well, but I think that's probably the best idea is if we were to do a conditional approval, so that, a conditional approval so that that can go through and that we're, as a board, aren't holding it up. But that also gives school district staff enough time to make sure they have their stuff in order. Does that seem to make sense to
yeah,
us?
I was just saying a conditional approval with the expectation that things will be finalized by the end of the week for them to have an answer from John.
Yeah,
Because
so
I think the real issue is really going to be, in years past, the hang-up has really been the buses and parking over there.
Right. So they'll,
It usually hasn't been us, it's been more making sure that we have a place to put all the buses.
And I believe that's how they did it in the past. I mean, we haven't had a home show, I think, since the stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
And they did,
Yeah, we needed to get like special dispensation to park the buses like literally all over the place, so I just want to make sure that that's communicated.
as well, but we've started those conversations, but obviously we can't proceed if we
Right, so,
Are there any other hurdles that we can see?
the porta potties are ours? Okay,
So the tournament advance director has been on site. He knows what we're working with.
gotcha, okay,
He's the one
that's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
Because they don't have many schools in South Jersey that are part of TOV that are willing to host. So he's fully aware of our limitations. He was here in April and May and kind of
So-
saw everything. So he's aware of the bleachers and the porta potty situation.
So, my thought here is that there's clearly some discussion that should be had, but it seems to me as if the board, we feel in support of this if this can happen. And so my thought would be that we maybe create a new motion to conditionally approve it. So then at that point, those discussions happen, and if it works out, then awesome, right? That the board, we're in support of hosting this if this is something that's possible, right? So at this point, I think we probably have to vote on the current motion, or can I rescind, or can whoever did it rescind it?
You can add another motion to conditionally approve this, and then I'll take a roll call on this one after we do the roll call on the other ones.
Okay. So
Because
can
you're
we-
adding an item to the agenda.
Right. Wait, would that be a secondary motion to the secondary motion? I don't think we can do that.
Listen,
I mean, I have my Robert's Rule book here. If you want, I can look it up. but-
No, 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 let's, no.
Yes.
Wait, are we adding this as a numbered
So-
agenda item or not?
Yeah, so why don't we,
Yeah.
okay, so why don't we, right, vote on what we have and then we'll modify it, right? So let's vote on this one right now. So the current vote will be on whether or not to add approval for the tournament of bands to this agenda. And so, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Devine?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes. And now can I have a motion to modify that agenda item as a conditional approval? So the board would be conditionally approving the hosting of the tournament of bands, the big show, pending district level approvals.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any question or comments from board members here? Okay, roll call, please. Oh, yes, please.
I was just going to say, it seems appropriate to acknowledge that around this time last year, we weren't sure if we were going to have a band, period. And so this is an exciting opportunity to just acknowledge the growth and evolution of the program. So thank you for your upcoming leadership and just to acknowledge that we've come a long way in a year, and it's exciting to be able to be talking about this opportunity for the kids.
Can I publicly acknowledge Mr. Woodward also? He is the one that found this opportunity, brought this opportunity to us, and has done a ton of work behind the scenes. We can't take credit.
So I think, in case folks at home can't, in case folks at home can't hear because microphone, that was just a public acknowledgement by the band booster president of Mr. Woodward, our band director, for having found this opportunity and brought it to their attention. Okay, thank you very much. And roll call, please, on the motion.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Devine?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes on items not.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
just
this
a
is just for,
motion.
we're still talking band.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so for everyone following at home, we now have an additional agenda item, which is the approval for the school district to host the tournament of bands, and that is a conditional approval based on the approval of the regular district process and the district folks signing off on each of the individual pieces. And so, at this point, are there questions or comments about the entire Buildings, Finance, and Grounds agenda items up for approval right now by board members? So sorry, we're already moved. Are there any additional questions or comments about the rest of the about the rest of the agenda items there?
I think we're frozen.
Yeah.
I think that's.
No, I have the first and the second, so I just need a roll.
I think we're ready for summer. I do have a question, though, however, about the lease for Good Shepherd. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of, I think I saw that this might have been the last extension, maybe? Is that what I
Yes,
saw in there?
it's the last
And what does
extension.
that mean, per se?
It means we need a plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a plan?
We are discussing, we're meeting Wednesday. I'm talking to Roger, because the first lease was for 2 years, and then we, with 2 renewals. So it would renew in October, so it'll get us through the next year. After that, I'm homeless, I guess, after that. But yeah, that just gets us through next year. That's more, they need an actual letter, too. That's why I put it on the board agenda. The church actually needs a letter from me saying we're extending.
And would you be able to give, what is the amount for, is it monthly or?
It's 70,000, I think, for the entire year. Top of my
I
head.
believe it's in
Thank
there. It's around 70,000 for the
Yeah, for the entire year. Yeah. Yep.
And then again, for those of you who following at home, basically this is where our current board offices are housed, because we need the space to host board offices.
Do you have an idea when so you said you're going to be meeting soon, like September or over the summer? Or, oh, I'm sorry, you said Wednesday, I apologize. Okay, thank you. it's just kind of preliminary talks, or when can the board expect to be?
Yeah, we always touch base with the church, like right around when like we're talking about like the next year. So we're going to be meeting with them and come up with a plan.
Hopefully with with the lease renewal and see what they want to discuss.
Can I ask what the options are at the end of the lease? Like, can we know about that? Can the
Yeah.
public know about that?
Well,
The option, is there going to be an option to buy? Is there going to be another option to
So-
possibly renew? Is that what we're discussing? I'm just for the public's sake, just so they know what's happening.
yeah. So I think what we can talk about is that basically because this would be our last lease extension, I think the question really will be about what the district, like basically what options do we want to explore when the lease expires, right? So what this means right now is that we would be approving extending the lease for another year, so we basically have a home for our district staff for another year, right? And so from just a simple question of, one question likely is, well, do you want to, say, continue to lease this space in the future? That may be a question in terms of because we need space for our board offices, right? And so that's, I think, one of the questions that they're going to want to know from us and that we have to figure out. Now, of course, I think it's clear to everyone who's followed along at all that as a district, we still need to address our facilities issues, and one of the pieces being the age of our elementary schools, right? And so I think we have to continue to explore all possible options, and knowing that the Good Shepherd building is still separate from being board offices right now, is still, I think, the youngest elementary school in the town, and currently because there is a built-in purchase price into the current lease that's locked in from like 2022, right? That's an option that I think we should still, as a board and district, be exploring to figure out how we can potentially modernize our I say fleet, but fleet of buildings, elementary school buildings, in the most cost effective way possible, right? And so those are all pieces where I think sooner rather than later our hand's going to be forced because, well, one, our buildings are old, and two, because the current lease structure we have runs out. And so one of those questions definitely is going to be, if the diocese is willing to, from my end, diocese is willing to continue to honor that price that was baked in 2022. But I think really beyond that piece, I don't know that we necessarily want to discuss real estate stuff in public, and that is actually one of the exceptions we have for executive session. And so hopefully that answers your question. Right. So I think that's something that we can do, is have an executive session on the more specifics of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think executive session would definitely be appropriate, because, obviously, I appreciate everything that you've been all saying about the space and the possibilities and things like that, absolutely. But, we also due to this past couple of months and voting to raise taxes on community members and being faced with a possible nuclear option, I'm just concerned about certain expenditures, and I appreciate that. Obviously, you need to be somewhere. I don't know what the annual cost of Good Shepherd is for this lease space as compared to other options, or what those options might be. And I appreciate that it's complicated. I'm just trying to think, considering that we just approved a tax hike for the community members. I just want to, maybe we could have that executive session sooner rather than later, so we can have those discussions just going forward.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mrs. Devine,
Yes.
Mrs. Maya.
Yes, with the exception of 11.11, where I'm going to vote no.
I'm sorry, what number? 11?
11.11?
Thank you. Mrs. Mikulski,
Yes, with the exception of 11.11, where I will vote no.
Mrs. Seltzer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mr. Dulkis,
Yes from items 11.1 through 11.34. 5, except we're required to abstain, and no on item 1136.
Mr. Chu?
Yes. Okay. So can I get a motion to discuss the Panther Pantry? And a second? It's, yep, okay, so Dr. McDowell, yes.
So thank you, Roger. He's got this big book, Robert's Rules of Order, and so we're trying to be mindful of the Robert's Rules of Order. I just wanted to, I wanted to make sure that we did not leave out another valuable leader within our district. And so in the rear of our space, under the leadership of Ms. Niesner, she's been running the Panther Pantry, which provides valuable nutritional and home support to needy families in Collingswood, Oakland, and Woodland. And we just wanted to publicly thank her for her continued commitment to community service. She is not required to be here. It is summer, and she is still here trying to provide resources to needy families. So we just wanted to publicly thank you, Arden, for your leadership and your support.
Thank you. So moving now on to Section 12 Curriculum Committee, Ms. Sherman, the chairperson, will present.
The Curriculum Committee oversees and approves the district curriculum and assessment programs, as well as field trips, home instruction, co-curricular programs, and the school calendar. Not many things on the agenda tonight, but 12.02 are out-of-district home instruction placements, all for medical reasons. 12.03 is curriculum writing at the middle school. Mr. Snyder writing the Spanish curriculum. 12.04 is curriculum writing at the high school. You can see various courses, including music, aerospace engineering, other STEAM and STEM programs. 12.05, this is an extended school year option, Camp Sunnyside at Camden County College for the 18 to 21-year-old program. So seeking approval for items 12.02 to 12.05.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Okay. Questions or comments from board members? All right. Roll call, please, Ms. Coleman.
Sorry, I was putting on lip balm. Very important. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Devine?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes, except for where to abstain.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes, except we're required to abstain.
Mr. Chu?
Yes. Moving on to Section 13 Personnel Committee, Dr. Seltzer, chairperson, will present.
Bear with me, the personnel agenda rivals the buildings and grounds agenda tonight. The Personnel Committee reviews all recommendations for teaching and staff employment and considers co-curricular employment and considers all professional development opportunities for staff members. 13.02 is a retirement. We echo Dr. McMullen and thank Mr. Yamamoto for his service to the district. 13.03 to 13.08 are resignations. We also wish all of these folks well in their next steps. 13.09 to 13.15 are a variety of leaves, FMLA and JFLA. 13.16 to 13.25 are hires, a variety of teachers, long-term subs, and we welcome them and look forward to meeting them in the fall. 13.26 are the 2025-2026 voluntary staff transfers. This is because staff in the district have first dibs when there is movement in the district, so these are some of those movements. 13.27 is approval of stipends for the Special Olympics Unified Schools Grant. 13.28 is the approval of a stipend for the Newbie Enrichment Club. 13.29 is the approval of the one counselor for summer high school counseling services. 13.30 are approval of the 2025 clinical supervisors for the Wellness Center. 13.31 is the approval of summer MTSS staff. 13.32, summer wellness program staff. 13.33, summer preschool hours, approval of those staff to work those hours. 13.34 is the approval of summer buildings and grounds workers. 13.35 is the approval of a number of ESY summer program staff. As you can see, quite a few. 13.36 are the approval of all special education and general education staff on an as-needed basis for IEP meetings over the summer. 13.37 is the approval of summer child study team staff. So is 13.38, which is for assessments. 13.39 are approval of summer psychology assessments. 13.40, summer ELL screenings. 13.41 are approval of summer hours for secretaries. 13.42, summer hours for nurses. 13.43 is the approval of 2025-2026 Student Voice Advisor, which is paid for through Title I funds. 13.44 are 25-26 elementary non-athletic stipends. 45, high school athletic EDP stipends. 13.46 is the approval of teaching staff for course overload compensation. 13.47 are 25-26 substitute and tutors approval. 13.48 is a travel expense form. We have a few trainings. 13.49 is the county contract approval. This is the submission of Ms. Coleman and Ms. Hal Turner's contracts. This is simply to approve the submission of contracts to the county. We will likely have to approve their contracts later in the August meeting. 13.50 is the Principals and Superintendents Association Agreement. I'm sorry. Oh, what did I say? Sorry, Supervisors Association Agreement. My bad. I'm in the 50s. Give me a break. 13.41, the summer hiring. I said 51. What did I say? Jesus. It's a long agenda. 13.51 is the approval to let Dr. McDowell offer any employment that comes up over the summer. So I am seeking approval of items 13.02 to 13.51.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Questions or comments from board members?
I am sad to see that Mr. Yamamoto is retiring, and I'm also very sad to see the multiple resignations on the agenda this month. So I just wanted to say that, and I know we've talked about teacher retention from time to time, and I know we talked about what we can and can't do, how much we have control over. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that we want to retain our staff, and we need to know what they need. So I'm going to suggest a possible climate survey at some point in the future to see how they're feeling about things.
Thank you. And yes, I'll also, add, especially Mr. Yamamoto's retirement. I think decades plus service here. So thank you to him for his service. I do also want to take a moment now to mention that in the personnel committee, geez, I lost the item, but the Principals and Supervisors Association agreement is the union agreement for our principals and supervisors. I just want to take a moment to thank Dr. McMullen and also the CPSA's negotiations team there for working with us to put together this contract, and I'm glad to be able to have this up for approval during this month as we discussed, so thank you. All right. Roll call, please. Ms. Coleman.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Devine?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes, except for 13.49, I'm going to abstain.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes, except for where required to abstain.
Mr. Dilkis?
Yes, except we're required to abstain.
Mr. Chu?
Yes. Moving on to, I guess there is So we have section 14 is Culture, Climate, and Policy Committee. There are actually no policies up for first reading, so we'll pass by that section.
Yeah, I'm not rivaling anyone tonight.
Yeah, no agenda items there tonight. So we'll move on to section 15, miscellaneous. Item 15.01 is the HIB reports from the previous month. Item 15.02 are job descriptions for preschool teacher, preschool instructional coach, peers, CPIS, social worker, and master, and then, so those are to revise or add and then to abolish the master teacher position. And so I'm seeking a motion for approval of items 15.01 through 15.02.
So moved.
Second? Questions or comments from board members? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Devine?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes, except for where required to abstain.
Mr. Dilkis?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes. Moving on to section 16, the second public participation section. I don't think anyone here is new since the beginning, so I'll add that this is a section for all topics, not just on the agenda. Reminder, that there's a strict 3-minute time limit per person, and Ms. Coleman will assist by keeping the time. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Hi, Kara Boiler, 90 Summerfield Avenue in Collingswood. Sorry about my voice. I spent Friday evening with many of you at the graduation yelling for all the kids who did not have an extraordinary amount of support behind them from my ear, so I was extra cheering for all those kids. So I just wanted to come up to the microphone and thank our community, especially our elementary PTAs, Oakland PTA, and the board for coming behind us for support if we needed it, to make sure that our seniors had a great send-off. Luckily, our community came full rally and gave us all the support that we needed, so that the seniors were going to have an amazing project graduation. And it was a great night for our students. We had so many people come up and tell us from the event how kind the students were, how respectful they were, and I think it's a testament to the class of 2025 for all their achievement, especially since they were in middle school and just starting out when COVID started, and really had to work hard and challenge themselves through a difficult time to get to this point that we are at today. So thank you very much, everybody, and we appreciate all of your support.
Andrea Haynes, Marching Band Booster President. I just want to say thank you to everyone. I know this is a big ask with a very short time frame, but we really do appreciate it. We have a lot of fun events we're working on, and we hope to see you all there, and we hope that you'll be there on the 6th for our preview show. Thank you.
All right, seeing as there are no more public comments, I think I'll just take a moment also to thank the high school PTA for putting on the project graduation as they do every year. So thank you very much. I know, I'm guessing the seniors look very much ahead to that. So thank you very much. At this time, we'll move to section 17 for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Have a good summer break.